India hitting the mark of 100 crore vaccinations administered is no mean feat, especially for a country with such a large population and with really no support from the majors like Pfizer, Moderna, and some of the other vaccine makers who have been supplying vaccines to the rest of the world. We have focused and depended on our homegrown, homemade vaccinations and now are in a position where experts are more confident of dealing with a possible third wave. To speak on this big day, I'm joined now by Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, Chairperson of Biocon. Ms. Shaw, thank you so much for speaking with ET Now today. It's a big day, and as ET Now has covered this entire journey through the last 18-20 months, you have been with us through the way, giving us your guidance, your inputs. What do you have to say today when we've hit such a big milestone?
Well, I'm so proud of this milestone. It's a mega milestone. And like you said, Tamanna, I think we have to be really proud of the fact that we did it ourselves. And I think that is a humongous milestone, a mega milestone for the country, and every Indian must be very proud of that. We must really salute our Indian vaccine makers, especially a huge credit goes to Serum Institute because they have actually provided the bulk of the vaccines of the billion doses, and of course followed by Bharat Biotech, and now the other companies like Zydus Cadila and many others I'm sure will follow. But the fact is that India has done it in an Atmanirbhar fashion. So I really think it's a huge milestone and I'm mighty proud of it. And it's no mean feat, like you said, because it's such a huge population that we have to deal with.
Yeah. What are the challenges that we now face, Ms. Shaw? Of course, 100 million sounds like a great figure, 100 crore, beg your pardon, sounds like a great figure, but it covers about 25 to 30% of the population with both doses, a larger share with a single dose. Do you think that covering that last 24 crore people is now absolutely crucial?
Tamanna, if you think about where we were in the month of May, and where we are today, we've really ramped up vaccination in every possible way. The pace of vaccination, the scale of vaccination, everything has been really, really impressive. And I think that's the mega scale we have to celebrate. And I, for one, am very optimistic and confident that we can actually vaccinate our entire population in the next few months. Because as you know, we've already vaccinated about 25% of our population in terms of 2 doses. And we have another, 75% to go through in terms of both doses. And if we could do so much in just a few months, I don't see why we can't achieve the rest of the second doses in the remaining period that we've set ourselves to be. Now, the other thing I want to also say is that we do need to convert a lot of the vaccine hesitancy into vaccination. Of course, there's also the younger population, the children who also are now waiting to be vaccinated. But I'm very confident with the fact that we have such a large capacity of vaccines available to us that we can, deliver on this promise definitely by the early part of next year.
Ms. Shaw, if we just look back at the journey, I think it was also marked by retracing and fixing what was not working very quickly as a nation, isn't it? We were first trying to import vaccines, giving licenses to state governments to import. That didn't work out. Then bringing the private sector in and charging for these vaccines, and then eventually giving them free to everyone. Do you think that was the pivotal moment when the government decided that vaccines will be free and easily accessible to anyone? Even if they can't manage logging onto the CoWIN portal, we'll do that back end. So do you think that and those tweaks really made the difference?
Tamanna, let's be fair to ourselves. I think we were trying to really improvise real time with dealing with the pandemic, with dealing with the vaccination model. and you're bound to make mistakes. But I think we course corrected very rapidly. Every time we tried a certain experiment which didn't work, we course corrected and fixed it. So whilst, yes, in retrospect, we made a few mistakes, but let's not forget that at the time when we did make those mistakes, we didn't have adequate vaccines. But when we had the adequacy of vaccines, I think we really sort of quickly caught up and delivered on our vaccination deployment very, very efficiently. I think now is the time for us to really look at what we shouldn't be doing the next time we get hit by any disease pandemic. I think that's the big lesson learned from this pandemic.
Yes.
That the government actually has to take on the onus of making sure that we keep people protected and not depend on various segments of our society to sort of chip in. Because although they are willing to do that, the most efficient way is for health security to be provided by the government. And that's why I think Ayushman Bharat is so very important for the country.
Even in terms of vaccinations, we were talking about how Serum Institute of India has contributed the lion's share, or the majority, I think more than 85% or even more than that, to the vaccines that we are administering. As a nation, do we need to spread those risks out more? In a major pandemic like that, we should have ideally by now had other players also contributing much more in terms of vaccinations. Wouldn't that be a more comfortable position, you think?
Tamanna, let's look at what the reality of the situation is. First and foremost, thank God for Serum Institute and the capacity and the vaccine it had. The fact that it had started the vaccine development way ahead of time, and it had invested at risk in terms of developing and scaling up the AstraZeneca vaccine itself, was a huge blessing for the country. Secondly, I think Bharat Biotech quickly sort of joining the race by developing the indigenous inactivated viral vaccine was also a very, very important moment in our vaccine virus war. And then, of course, you're right. I mean, there are many other vaccine makers. I think Biological E is there, and then you've got Panacea, and you've got many, many other vaccine capacities that were available to us. But, like the industry goes, each one wanted to develop a different vaccine. That's the name of the game. So I think you can't really fault them for wanting to develop a different vaccine. And although ideally you could have said that, let's just deploy all the vaccine capacity for our needs, that is something which we could have done in terms of, getting these companies to collaborate and partner with each other. But each vaccine company wanted to do its own thing. So it's very difficult to completely utilize vaccine capacity in the kind of, vaccine world that we are dealing with, where, of course, companies do want to have their own share of proprietary vaccines or their own vaccines to market. So I think that's the reality. Let's realize that. But the great thing was that we had a huge capacity that was there to produce these vaccines at Serum Institute. I think Bharat Biotech also quickly pivoted to see whether they could bring in additional vaccine capacity. And as you know, they are now beginning to roll out that additional vaccine capacity. And then, of course, you've got Biological E and many other vaccine makers who started trying to develop other vaccines. Now, that is where we have not had the benefit of those other vaccines because they were not developed or tech transfer didn't happen in time. And we've not been able to use those capacities effectively.
Absolutely. Nevertheless, it's a big day, and not one which tells us to stop social distancing or take off our masks. We need to continue to be careful. But yes, definitely a day in which we can take pride in what we've achieved. Thank you so much, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, for joining us today.
Thank you, Tamanna.